Well, hey, welcome to the Pursue One podcast, your home for learning to pursue what matters most. Do me a favor, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether that's Google, Apple, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I also would encourage you to leave us a review. That helps people find our content faster and quicker. On today's podcast, Jeff and I are joined by Dalton Vaughn. Dalton is an archery, really just enthusiast. He owns a bow shop. He gets into really how to pick the best bow for you. He gets into arrow weight and selection. He also gets into target panic and proper form towards the end of the episode. And man, it's a really good one. We really appreciate Dalton taking the time to join us on this podcast. I want to take just a quick minute and thank our sponsor over at Wildside Beard Company. I'm getting ready to pack all my gear and head west on an elk hunt, and just packed up some of their new bowhunter blend to take with me on the trip. And it's just great product, handmade product. They've got beard oil. They've got a ton of stuff that you should check out. They've got a product that, again, I'm using called the bowhunter blend, and I really love it. It's a part of my system for staying scent-free in the timber. And so head over to their Facebook page, Wildside Beard Company. Also head over to their website, wildsidebeard.com. You can enter the promo code PURSUE1, and you'll get a discount on all of the products. So make sure you check them out. Well, let's get to our episode with Dalton Vaughn. Well, hey, on the phone with us right now is Dalton Vaughn. Dalton, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm glad to be here trying to make archery great again.
That's great, man. Well, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, of course, my name's Dalton Vaughn. I've been in the archery game since I guess I was a kid, about like the rest of our story starts. But I've been in the archery business for going on 10 years now, and that's every day, all day, running the shop, all in the shop, the whole 9 yards. So we're not just an archery department. I've always looked at it as being more of a pro shop. And then, of course, hunted for a lot of years. We drag raced for a lot of years, kind of as an outside deal, and just about everything else the normal red blood American likes to do.
Awesome. So who got you into archery?
Well, when I was a kid, I'm trying to think if I was 8 or 10, somewhere in there. Of course, Dad got me a bow, and Dad had hunted and still does, but he's hunted with a bow since '85. And he started working on bows in the backyard. And I think 86, 87, somewhere not far after that, because back in those days, of course, there wasn't many bow shops and that sort of stuff. At least locally, there wasn't.
I started in 85. There wasn't much.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, like I say, you've seen all the crazy stuff, the punch cutters and the overdraws and the aluminum arrows.
Yeah.
All that
yeah.
fun stuff.
It's a different world than it is today.
Somebody handed me an aluminum arrow the other day, and I had never seen one before.
XX 75.
So,
yep.
Yeah, it's been yeah. So I don't know anything other than the last 10 years. So, but yeah. So, Dalton, are you much of a bow hunter?
Yeah, I bow hunt quite a bit. I enjoy probably the target archery even more so, just because, when you're in the business, you don't get off and get loose as much during hunting season. And
yeah,
I'll say I've also had some health problems over the years, which ain't no need in that fear, but that held me back from going as much as what I always did beforehand. But this past season, though, the good Lord blessed me, and I was able to go a heck of a lot more.
Cool.
Heck of a lot more.
Good.
That's awesome. So do you shoot a lot of tournaments during the summer?
Absolutely. From we'll go to Foley, Alabama in the first couple weeks of February, and we'll keep shooting all through the spring and all to the summer. And let's see, I guess it would be 2 weeks ago, I think, that we finished up the ASA Classic.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. We were trying to schedule it, and you said you were shooting, which is pretty cool. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is really just the process in which a person goes through the selection of picking that perfect hunting rig for them. So what would be some advice you would give somebody who was looking into getting a first bow or maybe upgrading?
Well, to start, I would figure out, of course, I'd figure out my budget. That'd be to me, that's probably the most important question when a customer walks in. And it's not a good salesman tactic, but it's a good honesty tactic. I'm more about honesty than being a salesman, which, everybody falls in place wherever they lie in life. But I like to be upfront and honest and say, look, this is what you need. This is what you don't. We're going to send it. But if I was going to, brand new, I'd look at price first as far as new bows go. And I wouldn't be too leery of a used bow, but they don't come with a warranty, and you're going to spend that much money already a lot of the time. And the other part we run into as well on the used bow side of things is customer brings a bow in that needs cams or needs different modules or needs different strings. The strings are already worn out. Pretty soon you've tied up $300 or $400 in a $500 bow or $600 used bow, and you could have put that money and bought a brand new one, flagship bow, if that's what you wish to buy, in that category. But there's still bows that are in that $400, $500, $600 range, and we carry some that are phenomenal.
Yeah,
that's my first step, is kind of see what you're going to spend, and then after that, we want to figure out what kind of draw length and weight you have, and you can figure that out at home, at least the draw length aspect, and that'll get you a little bit closer. And what bows that you would like to shoot.
Yeah. So do you carry a bunch of them at your shop, or how does that work? I just am curious.
Well, it's kind of like a car dealer. We carry quite a few different brands. We're actually looking at bringing some new brands in at this particular moment. But at the moment, though, we carry Matthews, we carry VSE, and we carry Elite.
Awesome. Cool. Well, one of the next steps then is, so I've selected the bow I'm looking at. I've talked to my local guy. And one of the most debated things, I think, in the archery world is arrow weight. I hear guys talk about it a ton. Jeff and I were actually just talking about this.
Yeah, I'm going caribou hunting. I leave in a couple of days, actually. Slightly heavier. And I want to make a switch at this point from, I just primarily whitetail. Because I also want to start a little bit of archery elk, probably next fall. And so, do I go heavier weight? I'm trying to figure all this out for kinetic energy. I don't shoot super fast. It's a challenging thing. There's so many opinions about this out there.
Oh man.
Oh, they're definitely the arrow conversation is always interesting. It's as hard as that broadhead conversation for some.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up later.
Yeah. I guess the first question, if you come in my store, I'd ask, which bow do you have?
I have a Hoyt.
Right now. Which one?
Ignite. So it's a simple, low level, but I like it.
Yeah. A little bit slower IBO is probably the first step of that. What's your draw length and weight?
30, and I'm shooting about 65 pounds.
30 and 65 pounds.
Man, I wish I had a 30-inch draw. 27 and a half.
Oh, fun.
So I'd shoot.
Still get speed.
Yeah. I just wish sometimes you guys in your 30-inch draws, you know what I mean? Just a little jealous.
But if I had that set up, 70 or 65 pounds, 30-inch draw with a little bit slower IBO bow, I would, for an elk, I'd want to be 450, maybe 500, and then the caribou, I'd probably err towards the 500, especially with that draw weight. But in reality, if we can get a customer shooting, and this is just kind of a rough estimate, of course, but if I can get somebody shooting 280, 275, and shooting a 450 plus grain arrow, I'm pretty satisfied with the performance they're going to get on everything but dangerous game. And we've set up customers and have had plenty of customers all over hunting and shipped arrows and shipped bows and tuned their bows, all this, but from all over the world, literally. We got people in Hungary hunting with them, Germany. We've got people that hunt out west with them, hunt elk. So we've definitely had a lot of testing done on our behalf. We don't have a lot of elk or caribou here in northeast Arkansas, but maybe down by the nuclear plant. But other than that, we don't get to do that kind of hunting just a whole lot. So
yeah, I don't either. That's what's pretty exciting about this.
Yeah. Now for whitetail, I like to stick around 400 grains, 420. That way you keep some speed back for your yardage gap between 20 to 30 yards. Because in reality, deer runs up, grunts, chasing a doe. We don't got time to go, well, is he 25.6 or is he 28.2? No, he's under 30. it's got to hit, send it.
Yeah.
So I like to be.
So you
like
stay lighter
to
to keep it flatter, obviously.
Right. In which I guess lighter is definitely relative to everybody. To me, a lighter area is 375 to 350, in which we have a lot of people that have came in prior with that setup and they had too weak of a spine or too stiff of a spine, and the broadheads didn't shoot good and they weren't getting good penetration on the animal. So there's a lot of factors that kind of go into that. The IBO, the bow factors into all this conversation too. The speed helps, but you still got to have some momentum and punch at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, and that's where I ran across you the first time, Dalton, was on YouTube. I mean, you've got a pretty big YouTube presence, and you talk a lot on your channel about all of these different types of things as well.
Absolutely. We try to keep the content going, which is kind of tough, different times of the year, but throughout all of our bow reviews and some of our other content, our live builds we've done on bows, we try to go through a lot of these details to try to help people out and steer them in the right direction. And if their local shop is giving them a completely different outlook on it, they can go, well, I don't know if that's right, or if they are saying the right things, like, well, I think they're right then.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But just for a second, I thought I've been wrestling through with this is, I bumped up to 5. I'm at 525, which is, I think that's pretty heavy.
What kind of air? What kind of air are you shooting?
You're asking me questions. My son just assembled these things for me. Yeah, they're black and they've got that orange and gray.
Perfect.
I can't think of the name.
I think they're Easton Axis, aren't they?
Yes.
So they're the small diameter. Okay.
5.
Yeah.
They're 5. So in that range, I'm shooting 125 grain head, and we were trying to debate. Do you work on the balance of the arrow? How do you decide how much comes out front? Do you go 100 grain or 125? How do you make that decision on the broadhead?
Well, to make it simple, I like to use 100 grain completely across the board. There's a few reasons why, which with my spine program, when I set a customer up, we don't just look at the back of the box and go, well, this looks great, let's do it. We go through a computer program and type in all our information, and it tells us within a pretty dang close reason of what air combination they need. But to round back, I like to do 100 grain and figure on doing 100 grain because if I'm out hunting anywhere in the U.S., there's going to be a Walmart or a bow shop or an academy or something close that'll have some 100 grain broadheads, so I can go get them. And if my bow's tuned, I can just keep hunting in case I tear up my broadheads, lose them. You never know what's going to happen in the field, and that's something I always like to support. It's commonality, and that really, really helps if you get out in the field to get in a tight spot. So that's one reason I like to do all 100 grain, and it opens you up to more options for broadheads. I know there's a lot of I don't know if you'd call them designer broadheads. I've got a few that I really like that are the really expensive, $20 a hit dudes that are like 200 grains. But I think for most of us here in average Joe USA, like me myself, I like something just 100 grain normal, fixed head or mechanical. That just depends on the bow, the speed, and the animal we're hunting.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've heard you just through our conversation already is knowing your equipment, because a lot of guys walk into an archery shop, they walk into Walmart, and they pick up something off the shelf, whether that be arrows, whether that be broadheads, and they just shoot them. But there's so many things that go into the correct arrow weight, arrow spine, correct broadhead, all of that stuff.
Oh man, spine is huge. We see so many come in with the wrong spine, wrong arrow combination. Their bow don't shoot good, and that's kind of where I start too with most of my dealings. Is I'll measure the draw length and weight and get the specs and speed of the bow, and that'll tell me a lot what I need to know for an arrow combination, because it baffles me really. They'll come in with a 25-inch draw and 40 pounds, but they'll have a really short 500 spine arrow with a 75 grain point on it that's real light, but it's so dang stiff you could shoot it out of a 70-pound bow.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the opposite happen. You'll have a guy come in that's shooting 70 pounds with a 30-inch draw with a really long 400 spine arrow that's really too weak. So, I'm a stickler for arrow spine to be right, and that's where a lot of our broadhead tuning in store comes into play. And most of the time to shoot a broadhead, barring a few exceptions, your spine's got to be really close.
Yeah, do me a favor, and for the average person listening that doesn't know anything about the correct spine, can you talk about a little bit why that's important?
Well, your spine, that is the amount the arrow flexes, basically. And the way that they measure this is they have a 28-inch section, they hang a 2-pound weight on it, and they measure how far, basically, the arrow flexes down with that weight on it in the center. And that's how they determine spine. And most of your arrows, besides a few brands, but the majority, your Gold Tip, your Easton, your Black Eagle, they all go like this. A 250 spine's the very stiffest most of the time, maybe a 200. But a 200 or 250 spine's the stiffest, and say a 500 or 600 spine is the weakest. And the part of that, though, that's real important is each bow has to have that spine correct for that draw length and that draw weight, because if the arrow doesn't flex enough, it'll shoot terribly too, and if it flexes too much, it'll basically walk off target. And you can always get into the whole, which this is kind of rare nowadays, but have too weak of an arrow to the point it's dangerous and may explode when you shoot it. So.
Yeah. Well, I think you said a phrase there, walk off target, because I don't think a lot of people understand that the arrow selection, the correct spine, plays into your downrange accuracy. You can only do so much with the wrong arrow, and a lot of guys don't know that.
When you say walk off, you mean it's floating? What are we describing there?
I'll let you handle this, Dalton. You're smarter than me.
Well, if at 20 yards you got your bow sighted in, now there's a lot of reasons this can happen, but bad spine is part of it. But you sight your bow in real good at 20 yards, up and down, left and right, everything's dead on. You go back to 30 and you shoot slightly left, and 40 you shoot slightly left farther, and then by 50 you're shooting pretty bad left, and then you put a broadhead on and do the same test. And it's in the broadhead's in the net zip code in relation to the field point, which a lot of people also don't realize, which is fine. That's why we're here to educate. Mm-hmm. But when your spine's not right, you're not going to group as good. You're going to have them walk off as you go back, up, down, left, or right. I've seen them do it in a lot of different ways, depending on weak spine or stiff spine. But and then also, of course, you want to get your bow walk back tuned, have somebody do it, have somebody teach you to do it, and that's part of our process here when we set up a new bow is our walk back tune. That's a very crucial part, and that gets your bow shooting the same horizontal plane from 3 yards to 80.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was at a range a few weeks ago with a friend of mine, and he's got a new bow, new sight, shooting the old arrows that he's had. And he could not figure out why his field point was dead on at 20 yards, and as he kept going back, he kept moving further and further left, and then he went to 80 yards and put on a broadhead and literally missed a target by a foot. And
I believe that.
Yeah, and we started talking about arrows and what's one of the things that he had never really even thought about is he grabbed a new bow, grabbed a new sight, used the old arrows, and it just wasn't right for his bow. So, and that's
a big part of that is the spine, and the other part of that is the initial setup and tune that whoever set the bow up initially did. If your bow's not shooting basically straight through the paper and your walk back tune's not good, and you go to shoot a broadhead, I mean, let's be honest here, if you already got those boxes checked, the broadhead don't stand a chance because it's so much tougher to make shoot, depending on the broadhead, but the majority are, especially a fixed head. But and sometimes we'll tune with a bear shaft. I know y'all probably seen that as well online, but I like doing the bear shaft for my target bows, but for my hunting bow, nothing's going to replace that broadhead because that's what we're actually going to hunt with, actually going to shoot. And the way that arrow and broadhead work together is going to be a little bit different in most cases than that bear shaft.
Yeah. So do you shoot your bows through paper or do you use like a laser system?
Nah, lasers are for the government. I like to use paper. I like to use actual, real deal testing here on the range.
Yeah. I tried to stay away from lasers. I've gone to a few shops that try to do that, and I'm just not a big fan. I don't know why. I just not. So, yeah.
Dalton, one of the things we're talking about here, and you're bringing in a lot of technical elements, if a guy can't do this on his own, which I don't know that you can at this point.
Yeah, I don't know.
How could they, outside of going to a shop, which are getting harder to do, harder to find, how could they do this? Do you consult over the phone? How do you help guys walk through this process?
We do have a solution to that because, as we all know, and unfortunately, the pro shops, and there's some really good ones out there, got some really good friends that have shops, but they are getting farther and farther between. So it's getting to be a 2, 3, 4 hour drive to go to a lot of pro shops, which I'll say this, guys, we've had some people coming from 6, 8, 10 hours away just every other week just about to come see us because of what they see us do, what they hear us talk about, and say, hey, I want mine right, so they bring it over. But what we have, though, this is our new service, in which I didn't get on this podcast to promote this service, y'all. This just kind of came up.
No, I just set you up with a T-ball pitch here because I want to hear about this.
Yeah, me too.
So we have our new mail-in bow and crossbow archery pro shop services. So what you can do, and this has been extremely good for a lot of people that don't have a local shop, is go to our website, betteroutdoors.net. And then you'll go to that link. You'll go to the mail-in bow and crossbow archery pro shop service. And then if you have, say, a compound hunting bow, you can send it in for our stage 3 tune, and that's got our exclusive broadhead tuning. We're going to go through. We're going to set everything square, set everything right. We're going to make sure air spine's right. We're going to go through and check everything that there is, make sure that your accessories are still good. And then if you need a new string, we have an option just right on that same page to mail it in for new gash strings and cables, custom colors and all. But we go through this full process, and it does get a little dicey sometimes, some people's opinions on this, but is to have somebody else tune your bow. But if you have somebody tuning your bow that has good form, that shoots well, most every time, and I'm going to say 99% of cases that we've had, they have been extremely successful. They get the bow back to them, make a few slight side adjustments, but their broadhead and field points shoot together. They shoot good through the paper. So they go out in the field, and they're ready to hunt. All they got to do is just adjust their sight slightly for the way they shoot, and they're ready. And it has been phenomenal. We've got customers in Germany. We've got customers all over the U.S. that are doing it. We've got guys in California and everything, all the way across the map for us that are using our mail-in program. I just had a guy send me a brand new Matthews Tri-X that's never been shot. He said, I don't like the way my local shop does their work. So I'm sending you this bow. He sent me his Garmin sight. He sent me his rest. He sent me everything. He said, here, build arrows, set the bow up like you'd shoot it, give me the stage 3 tune, make it great again. And I just got in a Hoyt RX3. And that bow's $1,600 at the dealer, and he wasn't happy with the setup he got. So he said, look, I want you to give me the stage 3 tune and make some arrows to match it and get me ready to go on an elk hunt. So I said, well, much obliged. We'll make it happen. So
so you're taking the guy out of it, though.
Yeah, that's the only bad part of the deal is we're taking the shooter out of it. But
is that better or worse? I guess maybe that may be better in some cases because sometimes we are complicating the issue, whereas you can just address the technical, physical elements of the bow.
Right. If we can get the equipment doing right, then the shooter can adjust his form to get to where he needs to be to shoot. We've done a lot of coaching over the years. We've done a lot of shooting. I've had quite a bit of coaching myself, and there's a lot of things that just the average archer kind of, I'd say, does wrong when they go to tuning a bow. And I tell you, this is probably the hardest part is if somebody, say, comes into us for a new bow, is our setup process is about 3 to 4 hours from the time you walk in, the time we're shooting broadheads and leaving. So you got to be able to shoot some shots, and that's what's good about our mail-in program is we do all that labor for you. So when it comes back, everything's right. And like I said, 99% of cases, and we've been doing this for quite a few years, everybody has shot good, has been very, very happy. And it's like a computer, though. The information they give me for their draw length and weight is what they're going to get. So if it's right for them or they're comfortable before they send it, they're going to be good. Now, if a guy sends me one, he's a 27-inch draw and his bow's on 32 and said, here, leave it like this. Well, now that's kind of begging for it. But the equipment will be right regardless of the rest of it.
I took a bow, a friend of mine, to a shop, and he had not tuned his bow. He'd bought it used offline, threw some arrows in it, and started hunting. And he took it to a shop and had it tuned for the first time. He picked up 14 feet per second in his speed just from having it tuned right. I mean, it makes a big difference. So I encourage people to make sure they take advantage of that, because if you can sometimes watch your arrow fly and you can see that it's not coming out of the bow square.
Yeah, we see that a lot. We see a lot of rests aren't set up right. Of course, as we've talked about, arrow spine's not right. And and we had this the other day, and this is a brand new bow. He's going to mail it in. I forget which one. I think it's a Verdicts, but he's going to mail it in. And he said his local shop, they would paper tune it with them shooting it, not him. Which that's fine if their form's good, but he said it was kind of okay. And the worst part is they wouldn't shoot at all for him. So we're actually going to shoot your broadheads and your field points and get them shooting together and get you. And once all that's right, your bow's right, and you're ready to go hunting. We see that a lot. Is like you said, you go out there and you shoot, you shoot the field point that's good, and then you shoot your broadhead and it's a foot off. Well, we address all them problems as well.
Yeah. So the right time for a guy to send a bow in is what, like 2 weeks before season?
Oh yeah, of course.
When's the best time for guys to get a hold of you to do that?
If I had a brand new year to start with, I would probably want to send it in between June and July. That's going to be probably the very best time. That's when we've got, it's kind of a slower time of the year for us in the archery business. There's not a lot of archery going on besides target archery, so that'd be the ideal time. Which, provided the shipping, then shipping's always a fickle thing. It might take 2 or 3 days to get to us. Might take a week depending on where you're at and all that. And then maybe the same back to you. But as far as once the bow gets to our door, we usually turn them around 2 to 3 days with our tunes. Now, our strings, they usually take a week to a week and a half, maybe more. And that's mostly just a bottleneck of getting custom strings in from gas bow strings to restring your bow, because I'll be honest, I don't want to wade into the build my own custom strings aspect. I'd rather let the pros do that.
Yeah, yeah. So Dalton, do you do any like coaching?
We do actually. We do archery coach in level 1 as well, and also an S3DA certified coach.
Are you there? We lost you for a second.
Still got contact?
There we go. There we go. Go ahead and start over.
Okay. But so I'm a level 2 archery coach, USA archery coach, and also a level 1 and an S3DA certified coach. So we do offer quite a bit of coaching. That's been probably, honestly, if you want to get to where you can shoot better, coaching is where it's at. Learning how to shoot your equipment better than just going and buying equipment. Now, that's a terrible thing to say as a guy that sells bows all the time, but I'm honest here. I would rather teach somebody how to use what they have to shoot before they upgrade than them upgrade and be like, oh, I'm going to shoot so much better because I spent $1,500, and they don't, because target panic's still there. They're still gripping the bow. They're still shooting with the bent arm. Their front shoulder's still really high. I mean, there's a lot of problems, and they're punching the trigger to be, just to round all that off. So if you can't shoot your equipment good, it don't matter what you spend. It's not the car, it's the driver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So do you do any like coaching through like FaceTime or Google, or is it all in person?
Yeah, for now it's all in person. We're looking at some options to do online coaching. We've just been, like I say, a little spread thin on that deal. I run the whole show here by myself, and my dad, he comes in and helps when he can, when he's not at work, but 99% of the time I'm running the show, so kind of spread a little thin, but we do appointments here in the store for that.
Great.
You mentioned something that kind of catches my attention because of a personal problem, and that's punching the trigger.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say one time that every archer deals with target panic. Would you say that's true?
Oh, absolutely. You're either have it, going through it, or going out of it. It's kind of one of them deals. In a way, I guess. There's some people that don't really have it, but there's ways. I should say there's ways to keep it away, but it does take a lot of discipline. I can't lie.
So what would you tell somebody that's dealing with it?
Well, the first step, which target panic takes a lot of shapes, and that does complicate matters. I would say, though, if I was just going to make a general guess, I would say that the vast majority that come in, they're trying to hold the pin dead in the center of the target and punch the trigger as soon as it makes it to the center of the target. Does that sound familiar at all?
Mm-hmm. Bingo.
I've been there. Trust me. It was bad. It was. I'll tell you a little bit of story, a little anecdote for that.
Rationalizing that, I always say, deer doesn't stand still. And so when you're on, you got to pull the trigger. And so
it kind of adds up. I can't say it don't, but I struggled with target panic, and when I first started shooting, when I come back in the sport there, when I was 16, 17, 18, and I was shooting with a bent arm, and I could only get my pin if the target was a Vegas X ring on the yellow and red targets. I could get my pin to the bottom of the red, and I mentally and physically could not move my arm up to put the pin in the middle of the target and pull the trigger. It was not going to ever happen.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when I would get it to pull up there, I'd have to hammer it right as soon as it crossed it to ever hit it. And boy, that is the worst habit ever in the world in archery right there.
I find myself having to almost if I miss the moment, I almost have to go back up and come down because it's like my body doesn't want to even go up at that point. It's weird.
That drive-by shooting, that's what that's called.
Yeah, it's not a good habit, I know.
Yeah. Well, and
tough.
I talked to a guy just last week who said that he has taken he's had to remove his sight from his bow and blank bail because he said that when he puts his pin on a target, his brain just says send it, and he just cannot. He's wounded several deer, and he's to the point now where Illinois just made crossbows illegal a few years ago, and he's thinking about picking up one of those because he said it's crippling him.
He'll do the same thing. He'll do the same thing with that.
Oh, that's the thing is and so I want to talk to you, Dalton, about do you have a shot process you go through? What strategies do you do? I know if tons of archers deal with target panic, but how can we try to fix that?
Which there's a lot of ways, and like I said, there's a lot of different forms target panic takes. The drive-by up and down, the left and right, they can't get the pin to the target, the slapping the trigger. There's a lot of ways it can be, but I'll have to just kind of round it down to just one or two kind of forms of this to make it a little easier for the listeners. But so say you've got the problem of you can't get the pin up to the target. And when you do get to the target, you punch the trigger like we was talking about. So, and that's, of course, that's where I was at. So it's the easiest for me to explain. So the way that I approach that and the way that I shoot now is, so this is going to be out of left field, which is going to make sense. But your eye's a circle, your pin's a circle, the target's, well, I shouldn't say is a circle necessarily, depends on what you're shooting, but you see in a circular pattern with binocular vision. It's always a circle. So your mind is used to lining circles up really, really well. And here's always the first question when somebody says, man, I can't shoot, and we start talking about this is, does a pitcher draw sights on his hand to throw a baseball to the catcher? That right there, huge. That's probably the gold nugget right there. You don't have to put the pin dead in the center of the target to hit where you want to hit. That blows everybody's mind completely out of the water.
Explain.
Well, I'm sure y'all play plenty of sports, and just like with baseball, you're throwing a ball to a catcher, and you're looking where you want that ball to go when you throw it. So you're going to shoot your bow the same way.
More of an instinctive thing?
Well, in a way, but not exactly. I see where you're going with that, but what you're going to do is you're going to draw back, look through your peak, look through your sight, get your bow level, and then you're going to look at the target with your primary vision. In your peripheral vision, you will see the pin, and it's going to be moving, it's going to be floating. But you look where you want to hit more than you look at the pin. And a lot of our guys that come in that are military, that are police, that have had a lot of firearms training, they're used to running the front sight on a rifle or a handgun. The majority of them are that have told me. And they're used to using the front side on that bow and putting it on the target, pulling the trigger, just like a rifle.
That's what I do. That's it right there.
Right. And what you'll get to do is you'll get where you want to look at see the target, so you'll put the pin right under where you want to hit, which is about the same way it got sighted in for the factory.
Yeah.
I shoot those a lot. So it's kind of, and I actually have got to where I shoot my guns the same way, but you look past the pin, make it blurry, make your target clear, and that's what you focus on as you go through your shot.
Interesting. I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Huh.
And like you said, it's kind of like instinctive. With a traditional bow, you don't necessarily aim it necessarily. Which I shoot with a traditional bow, I shoot the gap, and that's where you hold that bow in front of you. You look down the arrow, and you get it square. Then you draw. You put it under where you want to hit, and then you draw. But when you draw, you go from looking at the arrow to looking where you want to shoot. It's basically that concept of looking where you want to hit. It's the same deal, and it's weird that something that simple applies to archery so greatly, and the vast majority are so used to put the pin on the target, hammer the trigger, and they're wondering why they don't shoot so good.
I have never even thought about that. That's really cool.
I want to go shoot. Can we cut this short here?
For real.
Yeah,
I want to go try that.
I get my headset on. I can go shoot now.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. So out of curiosity, Dalton, are you back tension guy?
I do prefer to shoot back tension with anything I pick up, and that's something we teach pretty much first off, if possible, with a new customer or somebody, especially with coaching. That's really where we start, is your shot execution, because you can shoot a index finger release with back tension, you can shoot a thumb with back tension, or you can shoot a hinge with back tension, plus the resistance activated. I know there's a lot of different ways to call it.
Yeah.
But for competition, I shoot a true ball goat, and that's going to be and it's a thumb or hinge. It's got options for that, but I'd shoot it all as a hinge. I really like how that release feels and activates. But and that's really how I cured my target panic years ago. Was I spent 2 or 3 months basically under 10 yards, no sight on my bow, blind belling until I got to where I could activate that hinge subconsciously. Or to this day now, if I'm talking about it with a customer in a store and I just put my hand on my face and put my bow arm out there to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about without a bow or anything, after a few seconds, my shoulder will start rotating behind me because it wants to shoot that bow because I've done it so much. And,
that's cool.
It's really, really freaky sometimes. I won't even realize I'm doing it. I'm like, why are you moving your hand? I'm like, oh, I was. But that's something that I've worked with. Yeah, exactly. I've worked with Larry Wise some. He's an excellent coach from the old school, excellent guy. His books are fantastic. Bernie Pellery, he's an older gentleman too, and his books were fantastic. Talked to him some, and have talked to quite a few of the different pros, and of course our sales reps for different bow companies. So I've amalgamated a lot of information into one ball, basically, like we all do. But in my findings, shooting with a surprise release and looking at the target and not the pin as much, that's the 2 secrets to me of going from being able to shoot a pie plate to being able to destroy your arrows on command here.
That's awesome. Well, Dalton, we'll run out of time, but I wanted just to ask you one question. If you could give an archer or a hunter some advice, what would you give them?
Number one thing.
If I was hunting and I needed help, I would definitely find a reputable pro shop, a coach, or somebody that is a tournament archer that shoots at a real high level to help me with my form and my shot and even my bow setup. There's a lot of good information online, but of course, and this, everybody, and I say this even sometimes, is take all that with a grain of salt, because you want somebody that is in person or very close to it, that's practical, that can help you, or that you trust to help you, not just a random archery talk article. We have a lot of that. And that would be my first step, though, is learn how to use the equipment you have and make sure that equipment is tuned and set up right as well. There's the 2 parts to that. So,
yeah.
Well, I hear you saying that almost in every part of your discussion, Dalton. This is an entire package. And we try to tweak sometimes one little element of things without looking at the big picture of it. And you're stepping back and looking at every detail of the big picture.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, Dalton, tell us one more time. Tell us one more time where we can get a hold of you and where people can talk about your State Street tuning.
They can find us, probably the easy one's going to be, of course, Facebook, the Better Outdoors Archery Pro Shop. That's on Facebook. And then Instagram, Better Outdoors Archery Pro Shop as well. We do a lot of cool stuff on both of those platforms. We do live bow builds, especially when the new bows come out at different times of the year on Facebook. There's still some you can, of course, go back and watch. And of course, our YouTube channel, we try to keep that more updated than we do. But when you got so much going on, it's kind of tough, and you get pulled in 4 different directions. It's one of them. But we have a lot of good bow reviews there, and we've got more bow reviews to come. We got crossbow reviews to come. Our live builds are actually on there. You can go back and watch just to kind of see what we're about, how we approach it, and kind of what you'll get if you mail in your bow, or if you're local or semi-local even and want to come down and schedule an appointment to have your current bow worked on, to buy a new bow, any of that restrung. But probably the best option, like we talked about earlier, is if you want to mail your bow to us after if you like what you see on YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, with the way we tune our approach, visit betteroutdoors.net. That's our mail-in services there. Our bow packages are there. We even mail ESC packages to your door, fully tuned. We mail arrows fully set up to you that match your bow. So we've got a lot to offer. You're just going to have to go check us out on the web.
Sounds good.
That's awesome. It makes me want to stop recording and go try to shoot my bow right now.
Yep, I'm out of here.
Yes, go shoot and look at the target and not the pin, and just see if that's different. I bet that'll be a lot different.
And for those of you listening, Dalton will mail you an arrow if you lose yours. So, I'm kidding.
Well,
I'm kidding.
All right. Thanks, Dalton. We
thanks,
appreciate
man.
your time, man.
Appreciate it. All right, man. See ya.
See y'all.